It looks like the ultimate dream for any business. Hundreds of customers throwing money at you, moving massive amounts of inventory, and watching the sales counter spin. But every year, companies pulling in millions of dollars suddenly collapse. They look perfectly healthy on paper, but the reality behind the curtain is far more fragile. They are seeing massive amounts of money pass through their hands without any of it actually staying there. This model helps visualize where the money goes. OMZET represents your gross intake, the top line. Profit tracks what remains after your basic expenses. But at the very bottom is cash flow, the liquid currency you actually have available to spend. You can have strong profit margins on a spreadsheet, but if your cash is tied up in unpaid invoices or burned on high customer acquisition costs, a structural blockage keeps that bottom flask empty. If the money isn't liquid, you can't pay your employees on Friday. These inefficiencies are becoming harder to hide. When customer acquisition costs rise and operational overhead grows, relying on sheer transaction volume to stay ahead of the bills becomes a losing game. We are seeing a transition away from the growth at all costs mentality. Businesses are finding that without sustainable structural fundamentals, they are simply moving faster toward a dead end. High sales numbers are merely a distraction if the bank account stays empty. Without strict cash flow management, a booming top line is just a company accelerating toward its own insolvency. The current climate in Indonesia is surprisingly optimistic. The Consumer Confidence Index hit 127 earlier this year, meaning people have money to spend. But they are making much harder choices about where to put it. Shoppers are moving past the era of impulse buys, driven by deep discounts. They are carefully weighing quality, brand trust, and the total experience, expecting a seamless transition between their phone and the physical store. This creates a divide. Businesses must now choose between delivering a truly premium experience or maintaining high-efficiency, low-cost utility. The middle ground, products that are just okay at a moderate price, is rapidly disappearing. The macro environment is supporting this transition. The Directorate General of Taxes has committed to no new tax hikes for 2026, holding the line on VAT to keep purchasing power stable. With the rollout of the core tax system and the continuation of tax incentives for small businesses, the regulatory environment is more predictable than ever. This stability removes the external excuses. In a predictable economy with confident consumers, failure is rarely about the market. It's about a business model that fails to deliver real value. We can see how the largest players are adapting. In their 2024 annual report, Unilever Indonesia announced they were hitting reset on their entire operation. Instead of just pushing more products to inflate gross sales, they cut bloated costs. They restructured their organization with a specific focus on protecting their profit margins. They shifted their capital towards digitalization and advanced technology, aiming to sharpen their brand competitiveness in a market that is becoming much more selective. They chose to sacrifice easy, short-term top-line growth to build an operation that is high-performing and ready for the decade ahead. When a legacy brand with massive reach decides it needs to stop chasing volume and re-engineer its cost structure, smaller businesses have to look at their own inefficiencies. Long-term survival often comes down to how much of the chain you can control. CP Group is a prime example. They started as a seed shop in 1921 and evolved into a global powerhouse. Their core strength is vertical integration. They don't just sell chicken feed. They own the farms, the processing plants, and the retail distribution through thousands of 7-Eleven stores. This flowchart shows how that control works. By owning the value chain, they insulate themselves from price shocks and cash flow bottlenecks. The capital circulates internally, keeping the system liquid even when the market is volatile. This massive $63 billion empire maintains its scale by prioritizing internal liquidity and ecosystem control over simple sales growth. The 2026 market is offering a window of opportunity, but it will be unforgiving for businesses operating with financial blind spots. Relying solely on gross revenue is like building a house of cards. It looks solid from a distance, but it collapses the moment an invoice goes unpaid or customer acquisition costs spike. Navigating this market requires the agility to meet new consumer demands, the operational discipline seen in the Unilever reset, and the structural resilience that comes from controlling your value chain. The viability of an operation depends on how much value is retained in the bank after the cycle is complete. Revenue is just a number. Resilience is a system built on cash flow reality, efficient costs, and undeniable value for the consumer.